The deadlift is a great exercise for a number of reasons. One, it works a lot of muscle, arguably as much muscle or more muscle than any other lift there is. You can work extremely heavy. Most people, this is their heaviest lift that they'll perform in the gym that's not a machine. And it also is very applicable to everyday life. We all have times when we have to pick an object up off the ground, and that's how simple it is. It is lifting a dead weight, a weight that's not moving, from the ground up to your hips. The problem is, with people who have poor flexibility or improper strength ratios, they tend to lift incorrectly. So it's important to do this right. You can lift a lot of weight with poor form, but you're going to pay the price. The spine is comprised of many vertebrae, which you can feel by touching your back. And it is very strong when it's in this position. When it starts to round over, it gets very weak, and the disc can protrude out as you hear a bulging disc or other disc problems that people have. And you might already have these problems, as many people do. You can still perform the deadlift, but you have to keep your back in this position at all times. Anecdotally, I've seen more injuries from people putting the weight down when they're finished with light warm-up weight than heavy weight when they're really working out. That's when people are lazy and they tend to round over instead of putting it down properly. So what we're talking about is the conventional deadlift. The sumo deadlift is when you take a very wide stance. We'll cover that some other time. The conventional deadlift, some problems I see are that people put their feet too wide. It's not a squat where your feet are going to be as wide as you would squat, especially if you're a power squatter. It's going to be a little bit more narrow. Some people even prefer to have their feet like this, with the heels closer and toes pointed out. You have to find your own way. But a good starting point is just to be as natural as possible, with your legs underneath your hip joint and your arms just relaxed by your side. If you're a bigger person, your arms might have to go out wider. But just basic physics, we want a straight line of pull down the body. Shoes, everyone has their own opinion on this. For me personally, I like to pull without any shoes on. But that's just me. Some gyms don't allow that. You have to kind of find your own thing, or try a flat-soled shoe if you can't lift barefoot. Grip. If you're using a hook grip, that's great. Not everyone's capable of a hook grip. That was covered in a different video. So once the weight gets heavy, you will need to either use straps or use a mixed grip. Most of the time, you're going to use a mixed grip because straps are kind of funny to use on a deadlift, and no one counts a deadlift if you do it with straps. The setup, you want to be very close to the bar. A lot of people will stand too far back, and then when they bend forward, if you look down, it appears that you're close to the bar, but all you did was push your shins towards the bar. That's not right. You want to get kind of over your shoelaces where your shins are touching or almost touching the bar, maybe an inch or two. Again, that depends on your own body. Another mistake people make is that they try to stay very upright. It's not a standard deadlift and a clean deadlift are two different exercises. For an Olympic lift, you're going to have a more upright stance, whereas for a normal deadlift, your hips might be a little bit higher. This is because if you watch people deadlift, excuse if you can see the mic pack, you will often see they'll hit the bar too hard and their hips go like this before the weight's even moving. Well, if that's the natural position they should be pulling from, why are they starting with their hips so low? Because if you slow that down, again, it looks like this. Now the weight's leaving the ground, so why not just start in this position? So you're close to the bar. I like to put pressure outside. That kind of keeps the knees out a little bit. You don't want to just have them forward. This is a bad position, squatting, jumping, anything. You never want to be in this position. I'm going to take a mixed grip for this example, and you can see it's pretty much in line with where my shoulders are, maybe a little bit wider. I'm not pushing my knees way forward over the bar, trying to take an excessively upright stance. That's all there is to it. Now, lowering the bar. You have a few options. One, you can just drop the weight. If you're in a gym that allows that or has bumper plates, that's the safest option. The disadvantage, of course, is you miss out on the eccentric or negative portion of the lift, which is lowering the weight, which is also important. But if you have back problems, that's probably your safest option. Now when you lower the weight, a lot of people try to stay very upright and squat the weight down. It ends up sliding over their thighs. This is incorrect, as it pushes the weight out in front of you. If you lower the weight perfectly, sometimes the second rep feels better than the first because gravity pulls you into the right position. So the trick is, once you're standing up with the weight, is to just do the exact opposite that you did when you pulled the weight up. And that's push your hips back and then bend your knees as you come down. So if you're lowering the weight, it looks like this. Common for the bar to make contact with the shins. If it's a chronic problem and you're always bleeding, you might want to wear some high socks to prevent further issues. As I said before, one of the most common injuries I see are people putting the weight down. So make sure once you have the weight up, if it's your last rep, you're not lazily lowering the weight like that. Again, spine in this position is very strong. Spine doing this is very weak. So as soon as you feel that, you should stop, especially if you have pre-existing back issues. You can deadlift all day long with a good position, but the second you do this, you're done. One final note is the pause between reps. There are varying opinions on this, and of course, different methods have their purpose. I think it's good to allow a half second in between reps, as you could see earlier. When you just bounce the weight off the ground, it tends to pull you out of position unless you're very experienced, and it kind of sends a shock through your body. Remember that we're not trying to rip it off the ground really hard. It's more of like you're squeezing it off the ground and then driving hard with your hips. Again, if you pull too fast, you're going to pull yourself out of position. When you're very experienced, of course you can have velocity to the bar, but it takes a while to get to that level and have the ability to maintain your form. When I have people deadlift, usually the time between reps is about like this. It's just enough time for the weight to settle in between reps, but you're staying very tight on the bar. If you bounce the reps, you might bend your arms, which puts the biceps in danger. That's all we're going to cover for deadlift today. There are, I'm sure, thousands of videos online. You can find out more information. That's probably the hardest part, is choosing the right videos. But of course, if you want more detailed information, it's out there. Just make sure you cover the basics. If you do it right, this is one of the best exercises you can do. If you do it wrong, you're going to hurt yourself.